Hello, my name is Arthur, and in the next couple of videos we're going to do some Blender to Godot explosions. So in this video I was thinking that I would just try to recreate an explosion that I've already made, and that's going to be something along the lines of a shell hit or like a grenade kind of blast. So we'll just start up with some of the standards here for starting up Blender. We'll go with a small resolution, and well, actually this is a fairly large resolution compared to what I've used in the past. A very short animation of 20 frames. And I think that's it to start off here, so we'll just get rid of the default cube. And we're going to just omit something from a plane. So I'm going to scale that to 0.1 and scale it again to half that size. And come up with a little emitter. So from here, we're pretty much just going to add in the quick effect for smoke. That'll get us a domain. We can grab that on Z and we'll pull that so the bottom is about a couple Blender units off of Z0. So that's minus 0.2. And we'll go right into shading and put a material onto the domain. We'll just do a very quick material here and not set it up very specifically. This would be a very standard material for a fire and smoke simulation. So we'll put in the color ramp, converter, math. The math will be set to multiply. Oops, there we go. And we'll duplicate that a couple of times here. And let's open this window up so we have some more room to work in. And this color ramp will make for the fire. So we'll get something dark orange, something in the orangey yellow range, somewhere around there. And these are just quick colors, so then we'll take density into this color ramp, pinch that a little bit, color into value, value into density attribute. We'll pull some density up, then flame into this multiply, and this will map the emission onto the flame alone. Then flame into the color ramp, and the color ramp into emission color. And we'll pull up that emission strength a bunch. So that's a quick material, not a lot of effort is put in there, but it'll do. Now we'll come to our emitting object here, the plane, and we'll put in a particle emitter. We're going to emit one particle. We're going to emit it for 1 frame. And we'll give it a lifetime of 3 frames. We'll just uncheck the random order part there. And in viewport display, I like to crank this display to its absolute minimum. That way we can see what's going to go on. And from there we can grab our plane and just line that particle up more or less so that it's centered. Then from there, we'll want to get it some velocity. It only needs to come up. The normal is going up anyway, so normal or Z will do the same thing. And let's just see what we're getting out of that. Okay, that should be fine like that. We should have a look at this and get it pointed into a proper directory with a proper baking length. So we'll put that into this temporary directory here. I like to put it onto my desktop where I remember to empty it out. And that all looks good. So we'll come into our emitter. We want to set it to fire and smoke. Let's turn up initial temperature, density, and we'll put fuel at 2. We need to change the flow source so that it knows to come from that particle that we're emitting. And we'll give it the initial velocity. We'll check mark that. Then in the domain, we'll give it a time scale of, let's give it a time scale of 2. That should get us a bit of a mushroomy kind of cloud, hopefully. Buoyancy density, we'll put that at 1.75. We'll start the heat off at 2. We won't use any vorticity because that would cause a bunch of scattering, and we kind of want a plume sort of deal here. And then we'll put in just the default amount of noise. Now 32 for resolution divisions is pretty much useless to be emitting from something as small as we're emitting. That might work if we made our explosion large, but we're going for a small explosion. So to get that anywhere near realistic, we're going to put it at 128. And now when I start the animation, what it'll do is it'll do a temporary file for a bake because of the setting that it's on, which is replay. So we'll just start it doing that and have a look at what we're shooting for. So I already have a little explosion on my tank, and I haven't worked out exactly where I want the explosion coming from. Right now I have it inside of the bullet, and maybe that's the right place to have it. I'm not really sure though. There's some issues with this one. It's not going to look very realistic when it shoots a helicopter, and I'm not sure that it's appropriate that a tank can shoot a helicopter. So those are kind of details that I'm working out, but we'll have a look at what it does when it's shooting a ground target. Particularly when it misses the ground target is when it seems to look the best. And the explosion is not big, it's a small graphic. So that's what we got there. Hard to see when it actually hits the player unit. And the player unit isn't able to die yet, so he can still take a beating. And that's what I have so far for my first bullet explosion, and I'll be looking at different kinds of explosions. This is what it looks like. I think the resolution on this was around 32 by 24. And I have it playing at a frame rate of 10 frames and put in a whole 20 frames for the animation. So that should be done in Blender. We'll have a look at what we got. And that's come out pretty much the way I would have expected. It's very similar to my last attempt. And we can have a look at that. In shading mode, we'll need to get a light and get that somewhere realistic, because it's just a lamp, a regular light. And if we come in here and increase this, increasing this makes it so that I can't just press play and see what's happening, but I can get a good idea this way, just framing through it one frame at a time. So that's looks fairly reasonable. Could probably pull up the emission a bit. Yeah, that looks okay. So just a small little boom. Yeah, that's fairly reasonable. It's not a huge graphic or a huge explosion, but why would we make it all that huge? So from here, rendering this is not like other isometric things. It can be rendered just in perspective, and the exact angle of rendering doesn't need to be particularly specific. And some experimentation with the size of the render in terms of the camera. So more or less what I would do to render something like this is go camera to view, zoom in. The plane needs to be set up so that it's not going to show in renders. We don't want that to show up in the render. And then it's really just a matter of centering and picking the exact resolution. Oops, that's the wrong thing to be moving. I'm supposed to be moving the camera on Z. And then if we hold the control and middle mouse button, we can fine tune the zooming. Get that more or less centered in the frame. Then I would tweak on the resolution here. No use rendering a whole bunch of empty canvas and things like that. So we could go 64 by 30 kind of range, and that's pretty close. Maybe slide it over in one of the axes or the other. And let's see, what do we have for a view angle here? Well, we have 63. That's more or less right for an isometric render, and I would expect this would render fairly well set up like this. And this is about twice the resolution that I used in the example that's in my game. So in the next video we'll come back and we'll do something more like an exploding vehicle or something like that. So I hope this was useful, and until the next video, take care.